what America was and what it can become. This is Liberty Town Hall.
Welcome to Liberty Town Hall. Today we're having another local town hall forum with people from the community. Now I want to go around the room here and have them introduce yourself, where you're from, and what your current occupation is. Start here.
Tom Dunn, Land and Liberty Research.
I'm Stu, I'm retired, and I'm from north of Damon.
North of Damon, you don't have a town, right?
And Darrell Lee, I'm retired, and I'm north of Damon.
I'm Matthew Bondi, and I'm a business owner here in Rose City, Michigan.
I'm Clay Horton, I'm from Kirtland Community College.
I'm R. George Dunn from Alger, and I'm retired.
Joe Stone, building inspector from Iowa.
Brian Benjamin, I'm an unemployed biologist from Lupton.
Doug Davis, unemployed, Mile, Michigan.
Andrew Welser, Lewiston, Michigan, unemployed.
Tim Scherer, Roscommon, Michigan, and I work at community college at Kirtland.
Eileen Shear from Roscommon, and I also work at Kirtland Community College.
Lynn Rudin, I'm from Grayling, Michigan, and I work as a resource development manager.
And I'm Tom, and I live in Prudenville, and I work for a college.
I'm Linda Dunn. I'm from Beaverton, Michigan, and I'm retired.
Welcome everyone. I've asked everyone to come out here tonight so that we could talk about issues facing our nation, what we want in our government as a whole, and I wanted to try to get real opinions based on what goes on in our everyday to-day lives, not necessarily what we hear or see on the TV pundits. So one thing I wanted to ask is, what do we expect from our government as a whole? Does anyone want to start out with that one? What are we looking for from our government?
Protection.
Protection? What do you mean by that, George?
When the Constitution was drafted, the purpose of it was to unite the nations as a unit so we can protect ourselves from enemies abroad and within.
So, strictly protecting our liberties?
At the federal level.
At the federal level. What do you think the role of the federal government should be?
A lot of things the federal government does are the things that individually we'd have a hard time doing. If I wanted to pave my own road from my place to town, that's a pretty big undertaking, and a lot of other people use it. When we work collectively,
is that a federal issue, or is that a local issue for roads?
It's both. We have federal and local roads.
But whose responsibility should it be? State.
Local county governments.
Local county governments.
Township government.
Township.
Combination of.
We're getting a big variety here on who's responsible for our roads, really, fundamentally. What about, we have a storm that just hit, Sandy. It just wiped out a lot of people's homes on the East Coast. Flooding's in. What role the government should be played, the federal government should be played in that versus what responsibilities of it would be the states? What are we looking for in our government from that aspect? A national storm just hit, huge, it was like 900 miles wide, just come in, boom, like a bulldozer. So is that, it crossed more than one state? Does that mean the federal government should be involved in it? Or does it really fall back on the states? And we want to...
I think the local politicians and county and local officials can discern more readily what's going on and have the pulse of what, take a pulse of what happened. They're there. They need to relay it and have a direct line to the feds and say, here's the extent of the damage, this is what we need, and this is what we need now.
So the locals would figure out what the problem is, what the extent of the damage, what's needed to fix it, and then call Uncle Sam to write the check.
Call Obama if they have to.
Call Obama to write the check.
I would think it'd be more appropriate to be more like the firefighter, the firefighters in the communities. They have agreements to help each other in case they need it. And that would be the role of the federal government, to coordinate that help state to state. A state would help another state if it needed help.
So FEMA would be kind of like a general... A coordinator.
Constitutionally.
Constitutionally. But who's paying the bill?
Well, I think when they ratified the 16th Amendment, I do believe that went from where the states, the federal government used to collect money from the states, and the states collected money from the public. And after the 16th Amendment passed, well, then now the federal government could collect directly from the public and not have to collect solely from the state. When that happened, I think that interpreted the law in such a way that as a perfect union, the federal government would take some responsibility in national disaster situations such as the
So the federal government takes the money from the local, puts it in a pile, and then sends it back as needed. That's a role of our federal government.
Sure.
I don't think if you choose to build your house on the ocean, knowing that there's a possibility that the ocean can destroy your house, that it's the government's responsibility to rebuild it for you. You're the one that chose that, or the taxpayers.
Do you think we should pick up flood insurance for people that build their homes?
No.
Absolutely not.
That's what the insurance is for.
Absolutely not. We have to be responsible for our actions, regardless of what it is. And if that action puts you in harm's way, and you know it can be putting you in harm's way.
So FEMA should not be covering personal residents at all?
Absolutely not.
No.
I disagree. But this national flood storm insurance?
I think that, I think, first of all, there's a lack of leadership from the very top down. And if there was more, we wouldn't run into situations where these types of disasters are solely covered by organizations like FEMA. At one time, there was a community situation where the community pretty much took care of themselves. And a lot of these places where these natural disasters happen isn't a place where a guy just decided he was going to build a home. The Bronx have been where they've been, and Coney Island's been where they've been for years and years and years. And when you have a national disaster like that, the community can't afford to pay for that. So the federal government needs to reach out and help those people with those kinds of things. Now, on the other hand, in the wide spectrum of things, if somebody decides to build a home out there on the water where you're going to have issues, and they know that there's issues there.
Hurricane, earthquake zones.
Those kinds of things. Well, who knows what the earthquake zone is, but as far as the weather is concerned, and a hurricane's coming in, which, by the way, there's more and more severe as time goes on. But there's an awful lot of communities, older communities, that homes and things were built there long before we've had these kinds of situations, especially with FEMA and the federal government. If I'm paying the federal government money out of my taxes and for my employees and those kinds of things, I believe that we should have some say in how that money is spent. And today, we hire representatives that represent us, and representatives again go into hire the senators, and hopefully the entire state has the freedom to vote those kinds of people in office. When that happens, we're anticipating, as the people, a certain amount of protection from outside entities, whether it's a wartime or FEMA or things that happen to you as an individual. And I would like to know that if I'm paying money to the federal government, that the federal government can send some of that money in the case of a natural disaster like Katrina or like the hurricane that just hit New York City. And help those people, because there's no way with those kinds of disasters that the state itself is going to be able to handle the cost of that. But
what does the state actually pick up the bill on? The individual businesses and the homes, those are all privately insured, right? See, there's the thing, who's really covering the bill? So if we're talking about as a national level saying, okay, the federal highways, we're going to come in and we're going to fix those as a whole, I think some of the things that people have expressed concerns with are saying, do we have to make Lynn, who chooses to live in a flood zone, in
the Carolinas,
okay, can we make George pay for her home if it goes down? It's the individual's homes, I think, is where the question is, where does the federal government come in on the individual properties? You see what I'm saying? Because if Biff chooses to build his house up on a hill because he knows that this floods, I mean, a lot of these storms and stuff are very cyclical. They come in every so many years, so many decades, and they know that this area is a flood zone. So Biff says, man, I don't want my house being flooded out. I'm going to build it up on the hill. And then Tom chooses to build his house down there in the flood zone. And now the government comes in and say, Biff, you have to pay money every year just in case his place gets flooded. That's where the conflict, because all of a sudden we've taken away Biff's rights and took his money to subsidize Tom's poor decisions personally. That's where this conflict, I believe, comes in. Does this make any sense?
Absolutely.
If you consider the states to be the sovereign nations, 50 of them.
So it's up to the states.
If you have a hurricane come in Florida and wipes out the peninsula, you get help, the way it's set up now. If you have a snowstorm up here where we're at and you're grounded for 10 days, you don't get any help.
So it's not necessarily.
You need to go back
who
to
thinks
sovereignty
it's distributed
of states.
fairly then?
Absolutely.
Who thinks that these aid monies coming in is distributed fairly? Does anybody think that it's distributed fairly at all?
No, I don't think anybody does. I certainly don't.
Well, who would build a city 10 feet underground or below sea level, right next to the sea?
Well, if the insurance companies weren't allowed to insure.
Well, wait a minute. Insurance companies are there to make money, of course, right?
Right.
So they measure risk versus cost, correct?
And if they lose, they should pay and keep their mouth shut.
Well, again, right? So this is a private choice if they want to insure something.
Right.
If I want to not put grounding equipment on my tower, so lightning, every time it lightnings, it fries all the radio equipment, then the insurance company is going to charge me an outrageous premium or drop me completely. If I make a poor choice, I have a hard time getting insurance. So why would these people get insurance in a flood zone then? Why should we give flood insurance that's paid for by BIF so Tom can have his house in a flood zone? I think that's
Or it should be regional.
So then why do the insurance companies insure you with flood insurance if you're living in a flood zone?
Right.
Because the federal government requires them to. They're federal flood insurance. Matter of fact, you can't buy a piece of property without going through the federal flood insurance. You either have to get it if it's available for you, or you have to prove that it's not available on your property.
Then it should be on a sliding scale. Those that take the greatest risks should earn the greatest reward. So if the insurance company, for example, is insuring me, who chooses poorly, in some people's opinion, Biff's opinion, who chose to live on the hill, then I should be paying a higher rate because it's like the horse races at 101 odds.
So to bring it back to what we want from our government, and this was an example, just an example, what do we expect from our government? Do we really expect the government to take care of us or protect us? Protect our liberties.
I see the insurance companies and FEMA, especially in flood zones, where it's mandated not only by the federal government, by your mortgage company mandates you to pay a certain amount if you're in this so-called flood zone that is outlined by the federal government and FEMA and the DNR and the DEQ. So you end up paying that.
What role is the federal government's job in protecting us globally around the planet? When we return with more Liberty Town Hall.
Tired of faded bumpers, foggy headlights, weathered, sun-damaged vehicles? Introducing Wipe New, the world's longest-lasting solution for restoring and protecting your vehicle. And we guarantee it to last for years. We applied Wipe New to the driver's side of this vehicle. We then sent this car through over 100 powerful car washes. Wipe New never faded or washed away, proving that the results will last for years of real-world environmental exposure.
I don't think I ever seen it, Brad. I got it about 2 years old, and I've never seen it shine like this.
Don't spend a fortune on temporary fixes. Order now and we'll double the size. That's enough for 2 cars. There's still more. Order now and get the Pro Detailing Kit with the headlight applicator bonus. Just pay separate shipping and processing. Order now and get it all, plus a 2-year guarantee.
To get your Wipe New detailing kit, call 1-800-481-5617. Wipe New comes with a 2-year money-back guarantee and is not available in stores, so call 1-800-481-5617 today.
And welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. We're going to talk about the role of the federal government, our country basically as a nation, plays around the world. Does anyone think that we should be able to tell another sovereign nation what they can or cannot do in their own country, fundamentally? Do we have the ability, or should we have the right to tell another nation what they can or cannot do inside their own sovereign borders?
No.
No.
There are international standards that say that we will.
Pardon me?
There are international standards that say that we will. There's an International Court of Justice in The Hague. They took people from Bosnia.
But we're not a nation. We're going to get into, are we a
We're part of
nation? Are we a global nation, or are we an individual country? This is really...
Individualism's running through this whole segment. If we lose our individualism and go to international law, we become subservient to somebody somewhere who tells us to do something and we got to wait for them to tell us.
So should America only be saying what goes on in our borders then? Is that really what I'm hearing?
I would think so. I think that anything that you need in this, anything that I need to live or to survive, and my family and my children and my grandchildren, you can make right here in this country. Anything can be
What
made.
about trade? I mean, we can do trade. The trading with a country is different than telling them what to do.
Well, if they're charging us $500 million for two boatloads of cars, we should charge $500 billion for 2 boatloads of cars back. I think tit for tat when it comes to trade, and there shouldn't be this trade deficit that we have today. And without a doubt, I believe that that's kind of what the military, the United States Marine Corps and the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and the rest of the, that's the reason they fought years in World War I and World War II, is to maintain some type of equilibrium across this country.
Well, trades and tariffs and stuff is a role of the federal government according to our Constitution. So setting that is one thing, but they can choose to do business with us or not.
Right.
I'm talking about, do we have a right to tell them they can or cannot do something in their own country?
No.
No, not at all.
No, not.
What about Cuba?
No.
We had a Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there, absolutely.
Yeah.
Both of you guys were in the service at that time, weren't you? Yes. And by the way, thank you for your service. You were on the ship right there at Cuba.
Yeah.
Did we have a right to tell them that they could put Russian missiles on their property or not?
I don't believe we have a right in a perceived threat, but when we have a real threat.
So if they put them in and they launch them, then we got a problem.
No, if they put them in, we got a problem.
Well, wait a minute, it's their property. We
I
just
know.
got done saying we're not allowed to tell everybody what to do on their own country.
Well, but the verbiage back in the day was in 1963. The verbiage back then was it was more of a threat.
Forget the verbiage. It's
The perception.
It's do we have the right to tell another nation what to do?
Under threat, I believe we do. Absolutely.
What's the word defense for then? I mean, how do you defend if you don't?
You can't.
It's too
defend
late if you wait until after the fact. It's not
So if it's an aggressive nation, they can't have missiles.
Well,
but
if they're aggressive
peaceful,
against us, sure.
Okay.
If they're saying
Countries
death to
change all the
America,
time.
Well, like Chavez in South
Right?
America, if we don't help countries stand up against Chavez, we would have a problem. We pride ourselves in the Second Amendment to protect ourselves from our own government. We arm citizens around the world to protect themselves from their own government, from radicals within their country.
So we should be building nations.
Well, kinda not. I mean, we can't be the beast.
And our
and tell
nation
them
is
what
trying to disarm us
to- Well, yeah, but
through international law.
Through international law can disarm us. See, most people don't understand there's treaties, right? The Congress can create treaties, yes?
Yes.
Has anybody read Article 6 by any chance of the Constitution? Get this. How does it say it? And I want to read this real quick because this is kind of important. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made pursuant thereof, so any laws that the Congress makes, right? And all treaties made, or which shall be made, okay, so any treaties that we make, period, right? Under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and all judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state contrary notwithstanding. That means when you read that very clearly, it's one of the articles of the Constitution, it says a treaty, in a sense, trumps our Constitution, contrary notwithstanding, right? So if we have a UN treaty that says we can't have a handgun, do we get guns anymore?
contrary notwithstanding. Can't wrap my mind
If it's
around that.
repugnant to our Constitution,
Then it shouldn't be.
then it is not
That's
treaty
what I read.
enforceable.
Article 6.
I know what it says.
Word for word.
Contrary notwithstanding.
So,
It should say withstanding.
no, it says
I
notwithstanding,
know.
right?
I'd like
That's
to.
with and without prejudice.
So a treaty can affect us here, so our treaty should be affecting them as well, just as powerfully? Should we have the say over? I mean, if I have a treaty with you, you, and you that says we're not going to let him have missiles, because we're bigger, bullier, we can't let him have a missile, right?
Well, you both enter a treaty willing.
Well, we entered a treaty together here
Right.
that says we're not going to let him have a missile.
Glenn, can I talk about my missile ownership in the next period?
My great timekeeper. We will be right back with more of Liberty Town Hall after these messages.
Stop switching back and forth between drill bits and driver heads. Bo Riles here for the Halftime Drill Driver, the innovative new way to drill, flip, and drive in only 5 seconds. You'll never have to change a bit in the middle of a job again. And you can go from drilling to driving, Phillips to flat, any combination for any task. The breakthrough, our patent-pending swivel head that flips and locks, giving you precision performance from drilling to driving in seconds. You get the Halftime Drill Driver for only $19.95. I'll even include 4 Phillips heads, 4 flat, and 4 drill bits, no charge. Call now and receive this durable carry case free. Call or click right this minute and get a second complete set free. Just pay separate processing and handling. You get it all for the low, low price of just $19.95.
To order Halftime Drill Driver for $19.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-374-7875 or log on to gethalftime.com.
And welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. We're going to try to keep our segment on time this time, so if not, watch out for Clay here, okay? Guys, we're talking about treaties and what we can tell as a nation. I guess one of the big questions that come into the show, though, and why I've talked about all this, is because it's our military bases. We have roughly 900 military bases all around the world. That's a lot of military bases, right? When you consider that's only 130 countries total, that's a lot of bases in everybody's country, really, think about it. So I want to ask, who here thinks that America is real strong allies with Israel?
We all do.
Is that important for everyone?
It is.
Yes? So do you want Israel to have a military base here?
No.
No?
No, not at all.
Oh. Well, what about Egypt? Do you think Egypt should have a base here?
No, no.
No. What about Canada? Should they have military bases here? They're our allies.
Not at all.
What about Great Britain, Dr. Quinn?
No.
Well, then why do we have our military bases all over the world? I mean, 900 bases is a lot of military bases when there's only 130 countries to deal with here.
And why do we
Plus or
bribe them
minus.
to do it?
Pardon me?
And why do we bribe them to do it?
Amen.
So, why do we? Do we want our government to do that?
Well, it all started with the Cold War, where we had to have bases to protect, like Germany,
Okay.
rebuild Japan.
So that was a reason to go build a base, right?
So that was a necessary fact.
Why do we have to rebuild one? Because we wiped Japan out during the Second War. Why do we have to rebuild them again? I missed that part.
So did I.
The thinking at the time was that after World War I, we asked for reparations. We took a lot of money away from Central Europe, and we developed Adolf Hitler. And people were really afraid of creating that again, so they thought it'd be better to follow a plan where we helped build nations and put them back on their feet.
So that's when we
Unfortunately, it's
become
gotten carried
nation
away.
builders is World War II?
That's
Is that
the
the biggest
large
leap
part
there?
of modern era, absolutely.
Well,
Okay.
why would a nation want to have to pay for their own military when we're bribing them to be their military?
We're paying for it.
I
Okay.
mean, we're kind of out there.
Tim, you're a veteran, very proud serviceman, and by the way, thank you again for your service. Do we need military bases all over the world now? Or would an aircraft battle group do just as well, and if we went to war with somebody, we could take the land and build an airstrip if we had to have an actual ground base.
Well, I guess it depends on your point of view of whether we need it or whether it's in our best interest to have it.
Again, back to Cuba having missiles, right?
Threat versus perceived threat.
Threat versus perceived threat. What about Iran? Who here says it's our responsibility to make sure Iran does not get a nuclear missile when Iran has made it very clear their objective is to wipe Israel off the map to bring the second coming of their Messiah? Or bring their Messiah. That's their sole goal. They think that's their responsibility. Ahmadinejad has made it very clear numerous times he wants Israel wiped off the map. So do we allow them to have a missile?
Of course not.
You say no.
They're still living in the 13th century.
Who? Well,
the whole country.
Iran? Yeah. Iran's got a lot more out of than 13th century lately. They've got.
They've become quite westernized over the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure, they're adapting to the Western
they have
ways of Western
centrifuges.
politics.
That's not.
But not their women.
If we can
But
keep
not
them
their
from
women.
getting a bomb long enough to import I Love Lucy a few million times, we won't have a problem with
But
them.
should we allow them to have a bomb or not?
No.
At the present time?
No.
I believe
Absolutely
they
not.
do.
You think they already do, right?
I
But
think
there's-
it's a scam.
Well, wait a minute. We got other people that don't really play nice out there, like North Korea. They got a bomb.
Well, Saddam,
Right.
he said he had something, he didn't.
Pakistan was actually protecting and hiding Osama bin Laden, right? They've got the bomb, right? Is it really going to make that big of a difference if Iran has the bomb, if we have the ability to knock missiles out of the sky? Israel's a pretty good player in the military world. They can buy missile defense, right? So is it really important that we do that?
I think it is. I think that in some cases we're looking at a tyrant dictator, and I think that I don't think he would have any problems in using weapons of mass destruction against his own people, like Saddam Hussein. I think that the guy's definitely out of line with a lot of his beliefs. However, I did see a program with Piers Morgan where he looks and talks like he's a regular kind of guy, and he understands the policies of his nation, and he seems like a pretty intellectual guy. On the other hand, so did Hitler.
So Iran doesn't get a bomb no matter what, right? You guys would fund a war, another war.
No.
Well, wait a minute, because you can't. I mean, if we don't attack it and blow it up, then how do we stop them? So
Doesn't our Constitution say something about defense, arsenals, and military? It doesn't say anything about offense.
big difference, isn't it, guys? It's easy to say that we don't want them to have it, but at the same token, we can't. We'll be right back after these messages with more Liberty Town Hall.
Sitting in a chair for long periods of time not only makes your lower back ache, it can leave you with a sore bottom too. Plus, all those hours you spend at the computer can add up to an even more stressed and strained back. Well, the problem isn't how you're sitting, it's the lack of support and cushioning. But now there's Forever Comfy, the revolutionary foam and gel combination cushion that puts a supple layer of support between you and your seat to make every chair more comfortable.
You know, I drive this truck for hours at a time, and trust me, these seats are hard as a rock. But since I started using Forever Comfy, my back feels good and my bottom feels good.
Other gel-filled cushions sell for up to $100, but you can get the Forever Comfy with high-density foam and therapeutic comfort gel for only $19.95. But wait, call right now and we'll send you a second Forever Comfy free. You just pay separate processing and handling. That's 2 for just $19.95.
To order Forever Comfy for $19.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-307-3318, or you can order online at getforevercomfy.com.
And welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. I want to ask everyone, do you consider it an act of war if someone attacks our nation's sovereign soil? Yes. Would that be a definition of an act of war?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So our U.S. consulates around the world are part of our country, right? They're annexed to us, correct?
Technically, that's true.
So that is American soil. So there's an attack on our embassy and our consulate in Benghazi about 8 weeks ago, right? What should we do about it?
Impeach the president.
You're not happy about this?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
There's an awful lot.
That's pretty
There
good.
should not be any question about what happened. When he knew, he should have done something about it. It's no different than me stabbing my neighbor right here.
Right.
His
Okay,
wife
let
should
me
have
ask this. Who thinks that our government told us the truth? Has finally, at least at this point now, told us the truth on what happened in Benghazi? As a show of hands,
Not.
anybody believe that we know that our government, our president has been honest with us?
I think any situation like that is fluid, and I think the first casualty in any sort of situation like that is the truth.
Do you think
I
it had
think they
anything to
said
do with the
what they
videotape?
knew.
Do you think it really had to do anything to do with this video trailer that was out
It
there?
happened other places, and people said, yes, we're concerned about that. People are protesting. On the other hand, are people saying we really want to do something to the United States on November 11th or whatever day?
Well, it's coming out
Absolutely.
now that they've had more and more intel that we did have warnings on this for weeks ahead of time, that we had intel that we were going to be attacked, right? So how could this be about a video that was never even released, and there was no hits on it until after we started making it about the video?
Because there was no difference in the amount of intel that we were having an attack on that place any different than it was a year ago. They've been making the same.
Well, wait a minute. Since then, all the Britons pulled out, Red Cross pulled out, because there was a whole wave of threats that was made over like a 2 and 3 month window right there. They were building up, and every other nation pulled out. We know now that they asked for more security several times, and they were denied. During the attack, they called for help 3 times, and they were denied anybody showing up for 9 hours. These things all come out, and these are facts, these all come out after the fact. So how many here trust our government to tell us the truth? Period, flat out right. Do you trust our government to tell us the truth?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
Tom?
No, I don't know that they can.
So you think there's a reason why we're being lied to? Because it's not about a videotape. That was clearly a lie. It had to be. I mean, you can't have all these warnings and attacks and the call for help and everything and then blame it on videotape. When we got drones over, we're seeing that it's not a spontaneous
I think
riot.
there are times when all the information doesn't need to be released or isn't in the best interest. Whether this is a case
Whether
of
this
that
is or not, but as a general rule, do you trust our government to tell us the truth?
I'm going to go back to what Tim said. I don't know that they can all the time in the best interest of the country.
Okay, with that disclaimer even, that...
Do we expect them to tell us the truth? Absolutely.
There was a news
But do you
release.
trust them to? Who actually trusts them to actually tell us the truth?
I do in general.
You do?
Yeah, I think.
We want
for
to,
the
don't we?
Yeah, we
Right?
want to believe
We
it.
count on
Telling
a
us-
lot of different things in our society to tell us the truth. The media helps us with the truth. The government helps us with the truth. Individuals help us with the truth. It's absolutely the way it is. If there weren't people going out and saying, what are you doing? You're not going to have any sort of
The
reaction.
new media is bringing the truth to the surface like no other time.
Nanoseconds.
Absolutely.
So
Today-
you're saying
today
it's different
there-
between the
there was-
mainstream media and
night and day.
independent news organizations
Oh,
coming
night and
out?
Absolutely.
Today it came out that there was thousands of surface-to-air missiles taken out of Libya. Was it out of those 2 warehouses that were part of the attack? I presume so, because of my trust of the whole situation. I think they were running
So you think there's more going on behind the scenes
Oh, yeah.
is why they wouldn't tell us?
That's why they wouldn't rescue.
Fundamental
us.
lack of leadership, like I stated very early on, and I think that it's a cancer. And I think that had we known a little bit more and a little bit prior to the general public, we could have also taken steps to move the senators and the representatives in the right direction, up those kinds of things. On the other hand, President Obama, Secretary Clinton, obviously made some mistakes. And the lack of communication between Clinton and Obama was a breakdown as well. I don't think you can hang the captain of the ship until the the first officers have been held to a higher standard and taken into responsibility.
Okay. When we come back, I want to ask everyone, what are we going to do about our national debt? This is a national concern. I mean, one of our vulnerabilities as a nation is the amount of debt that we're carrying.
It is
So
deep.
If you guys think about that for a second, we'll be right back with more Liberty Town Hall after these messages.
The new Miracle Blade World Class 2012 Professional Series is the best set of knives you'll ever own. The spectacular World Class 2012 Series, over a $300 value for just $39.95. But we're just getting started. We'll send you a complete second set of Miracle Blades for free. That's right, another entire set, a $300 value for free. Just pay shipping and processing. And we're still not done. If you're one of the first 500 callers, we'll send you 2 additional Miracle Blade World Class Slicers. That's an additional $80 value, totally free. Miracle Blade World Class is also guaranteed for life. We'll replace any damaged knife at any time for any reason for free forever. Over $600 worth of knives for just one payment of $39.95. Don't miss this opportunity. Call right now or just log on to miracleblade.com.
Welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. We're talking about our national debt. How many people think that the national debt is a severe issue and concern above, to the point of a national threat? It's the national threat. How many people think that we're spending money we can't possibly pay and we are honestly expecting our children and grandchildren to pay it?
QE 3 and 4 and 5 are going to come faster and faster, closer together.
So what do we do about it? Do we really want to elect someone that's going to cut entitlement programs, cut funding for all of our little special interest groups? How much money do we get from the federal government percentage-wise for the college versus other income? What percentage of it does the federal government pay the bill on?
I wouldn't know the percentage, but it's becoming very, very small.
So at the community college level, the federal government's really not giving any money.
It's almost to a point that we could refuse the money because the regulations that go with that money probably cost more than the money itself.
But the question is, where does all the loan money that the students pay with?
That's right.
It's federal.
Yeah.
So it's not directly to the college, but it's
the government's guaranteeing the loans.
Yeah.
It's still the student's bill, right?
Well.
Okay, so the student still pays the bill.
At some point in the future.
At some point, the federal government's going to collect it because they'll take it out of your taxes, and eventually they figure that. So it's a pretty safe guarantee, although we may have default. Eventually, the plan is to get most of the money back. So it's really a federal guarantee. So if we could cut the regulations out across the board, would it cut the cost of running your local college, community college, a lot? I mean, how much is the burden versus the money, really?
We haven't done the calculations on that because there really hasn't been a lot of options for us. But I would say it would be sizable.
Okay, so you can actually save money if you give up your income from the federal government?
Yes, but we've got to be cautious, though. We're not sure we would want to. As a social institution, of course, we're interested in helping handicapped people attend school.
You could interact. You could ask these own regulations yourself, right?
Yes,
you could
have your own
self-regulate
way of doing that.
That you want to do. So whether it's mandated from the federal government or you choose to do it yourself, some you would do no matter what.
Right.
But all that is state sovereignty powers. It's not federal powers.
Okay, President Obama is running on the fact that he wants everyone to have an education and he's going to make sure it happens. But you're telling me it's not coming from the federal government paying the bill.
Correct. Comes from taxpayers.
So what role does the federal government have in our education?
Too much of a role.
Nothing constitutional.
Well, because we're running up a big bill here. The debt, you say, is a threat to our national interest, right? Yet we have unions being funded through the public sector unions, the school unions and so on and so forth. These are where the biggest bills of running a college are, right? Guys, is that where it's at? Is the labor union cost, yes? Or the manpower cost?
Third party cost.
Wages and benefits.
Wages and benefits per se, right?
Third party cost.
Third party cost?
The cost of having somebody else provide the funds and the financing to the students.
So you're saying that the cost is also on getting the money for the kids to pay for these wages?
Absolutely.
Do you think the wages at the college are higher or lower than the community standards?
Our research tells us they're the community or our competitors.
No, the community that you're in.
We haven't done that calculations. I can tell you we're standard and we're comparable to all other colleges.
Okay, so if all the other colleges are being paid 10 times what everybody else is making, you're comparable. But if the community down here is working for $35,000 a year, and you guys are comparable up here at $65,000 a year with wages and benefits or whatever, where's that disparity come from? How's the community paying more for the servants in the community? I don't understand that. Is that right? College education costs are going up and up and up, and it's mainly the labor costs that are doing it, right?
Benefits, or the
benefits and labor costs,
pensions
right?
are $67 billion unfunded in Michigan right now. We're headed, not only that, but private pensions are gonna crash. We have to get back to work. The people have to get back to work to pay these pensions. And the only way we're gonna do that is if we get the 22% embedded federal tax that's in a loaf of bread out of there, so we can get jobs, so we can compete with our domestic product. 22% of the cost of the price of domestic product is federal taxes. We are living under a production tax. That production tax goes into the price of the product. When Reagan gave us free trade, we didn't change our closed trade tax structure. We kept it. Now they're talking about making it a flat tax. Well, it was a flat tax when Reagan gave it to us. We need to change from a
So we need to get to a fair tax system.
We need to go to a free trade system, which is consumption tax.
Is that gonna, but what's that going to do with our rising educational costs? Because the federal government's paying a big bill for this.
The federal, well, you gotta have constitutional conduct to get the federal government out of its.
So you're saying get the federal government out of education completely? Is that gonna help or lower our costs?
That would help tremendously.
State sovereignty.
Is it gonna lower, if we get these burdens off and you guys can do what you want at the college, is that going to lower our community college costs? Are you stuck in contracts that you can't get out of?
I think you gotta be careful because one of the costs that the public bears here is the Pell Grants.
Pell Grants?
For students who can't afford or come from, sometimes they're first-time college age families.
So the federal government's paying Pell Grants?
Yes, they're providing Pell Grants to students.
There's where the money's coming from the feds.
But a state can run a Pell Grant just as well as the federal government.
Okay, so it's a difference whether it's the federal government's responsibility again or the states. That's why I said, what do we want from our federal government? We will be right back with more Liberty Town Hall.
It's been called the best concert ever. It's the 25th anniversary Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concert. Featuring classic performances by the biggest names in rock and roll together on one stage. Now available on Blu-ray and DVD for just $39.99. And if you call in the next 10 minutes, we'll ship it for free. Don't miss out. Call now.
Call 1-800-472-8619 to order the 25th anniversary Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concerts on 3 DVDs for $39.99 and receive free shipping when you call in the next 10 minutes with your credit card.
Welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. We're going to go around the room and ask, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Let's start right here with George. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
No.
I'm better off.
You're better off?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
No.
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 No. No.
Okay, so everyone that said yes was you guys right here, right?
Not me.
How are you better off if you're paying twice as much for gas? Did you get a lot of raises in the last 4 years?
Gasoline's not that big a part of my expenses, but I
So
know
it doesn't
more
hurt
about
you?
it.
What about
It
cost of
affects
foods?
me, and the cost of a lot of different things do affect me. But if you look at overall, am I happier now than I was 4 years ago?
So you're happier?
Yeah, 2008 was a disaster, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember 2008, absolutely, everybody does,
Yeah.
right? The banks had to get a big bailout, right?
Yeah.
And again, that brings us into the Federal Reserve, and I don't want to cross that line, except, because that's a whole conversation itself. So why do you think you're in better shape now than when you were 4 years ago?
Well, just from general research on my own behalf and on the company's behalf, and the strides that we've made as a company and that we've made as an individual has gotten us in a better place than we were 4 years ago. I think anybody really, realistically, would be better off than they were than 2008, unless you're unemployed. But as a business owner, provided you've moved along with what's happened and you've tried to absorb, don't get me wrong, there's been an awful lot of a large hill that I've had to climb in order to get there. And it's been harder, and I've worked 2 or 3 times harder in order to get better. But I do feel that coming down the pipe.
In our last town hall, we had a whole bunch of businessmen, and not a single one of them said that they were about ready to do any hiring.
Yeah.
None of them had any extra money in the bank. Some of them were worried about going out of business.
Yeah.
So if these businesses out here are struggling, there's only a few that are going up at best, then how is that better for the economy? Where's the jobs going to come from?
Not only that, but Obamacare is going to take some spending out of the pockets of
Right. How many people
individuals.
think jobs are being held waiting to see how Obamacare plays out?
Oh.
Who thinks that's affecting our job creation? Okay, that's a problem with employers, I think, right? But where's the jobs going to come from? Is the federal government going to get us the jobs, or is it the local business that's going to get us the job?
The problem is the government shouldn't be making jobs. It's not the government's duty to make jobs.
True.
But we have both presidential candidates, the current president and Governor
But
Romney,
that's what
both
people
saying
want to
they're going
hear.
to create millions of jobs.
That's what people want to hear.
So how does the government create the millions of jobs?
There's a cyst at the top of the food chain, at the top 1% of trillions of dollars. And whether there's a Republican in office or a Democrat in office, that cyst is going to pop up there. I think that the
Okay, so we
plutocrats
got the top
and the
1%.
neocons at the very top would like nothing better than to have a Republican in the seat when that happens. Nobody wants, whether you believe it or not, there's still an awful lot of 35 and white prejudicial overtones in this entire election and what's happening out here in the community today. And I hear it on a daily basis with some of the customers that I see. So I think that plays a...
So you think race is actually a big issue in this election?
I think, without a doubt. Absolutely.
Without a doubt. How many people think
Positively.
race, the actual race, not policy, not whether they disagree or agree with President Obama on policy, but whether they don't like him because of his skin color?
The polling shows it absolutely.
You think the polling shows it? But we didn't trust the media a minute ago.
That's different than the media.
Yeah, it is way different.
Okay, so polling's trustworthy?
No, I don't believe the polling's trustworthy either. But I got to tell you, you can't change the mentality of 200 years in a matter of 4.
Okay.
It's not going to happen.
So you saying more people dislike President Obama because of his skin color?
I didn't say more people. Just as many.
I'd say it's the other way around. More people don't like Romney because he's a rich white man than people that don't like Obama because he's a black man.
How many people think the rich aren't paying their share? How many people think the rich need to pay more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how did they get rich?
Okay, so let's ask what is paying your fair share? Because I know for a personal fact there's several wealth producers that are not doing anything to create jobs no more. They said, you want to tax me at 30% or whatever, right? Then I'm just not going to do it. And they're not going to risk their money, they're not going to put it in the economy, and they're not making any jobs.
And that's exactly what happens. The more you tax the rich, the less jobs they're going to create.
So what is the fair share?
That's what's
Okay,
gonna
if
happen.
you make $100 and I take 30 from you, you make $100 and I take 10 from you. Well, wait a minute. He worked 5 days a week and made $500, so we're going to take 35% from him because he made $500. You only worked 2 days this week and you made $200, so we're only going to tax you $20, 20%. I mean, because you make less money, you should pay less than him?
So are you moving into the flat tax situation?
No, I'm just asking.
I think that the flat tax is a perfect idea. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that if a guy's making $2 billion, he should be paying the same 7% as a guy that's making $200.
Well, wait a minute. The top 1% pay most of the bill. We got half the country that don't pay anything at all. We got people that file their tax returns and they file earned income credits and stuff they got on this, where they actually get back more of a tax return than they paid in all year long. That's welfare, right?
Glenn, can we talk about this in the next segment?
No, I want to follow this up for a second.
Go ahead.
Rich people don't have income. Rich
I know
people
we're out of
don't
time.
have a job where they have an income tax. So they get around the system completely, or they put their money offshore.
So
you need to have a tax system that reaches everybody.
Right, whether you're doing business in this country or the next, if you're an American and you take money from this country, you should have to pay your fair share.
But
And
the
if
problem
that's
is,
flat
when you have
taxes,
50% of the people that are either government employees or on some kind of program, they're not paying any taxes. So you narrow the base down of who's paying taxes, and if you're going to hit just the top people, then the job creation is going to be even worse shape than it is now.
you're not just hitting the top people when you're doing a flat tax. You hit everybody across the board, from the poor to the middle class to the upper middle class to the ultra rich.
We have got to go to this commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you behind on your mortgage payments? Could your house go into foreclosure? Does it seem like the bank has no interest in helping you save your home and you feel like you have nowhere to turn? Then we have good news for you. American Foreclosure Service. American Foreclosure Service can help save your home. We specialize in foreclosure assistance, and that's all we do. If you're behind on your mortgage payments, being threatened with foreclosure, have been denied a loan modification, or been the victim of a predatory loan, it's critical that you call American Foreclosure Service now. American Foreclosure Service has a network of attorneys, and our agents are available to speak to you now. Remember, if you're behind on your mortgage payments, American Foreclosure Service can help stop the foreclosure process. Call today before it's too late. New laws are in effect that may save your home. So call American Foreclosure Service now.
Call 1-800-541-7739 now.
Welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. We're running out of time on today's show, so I want to get to the point of what are you looking for in this election for president? What do you want? Yep.
I see this election as a crossroad between communism or socialism all the way, Linsky's type, or turning back towards constitutional conservatism, which would...
what are you looking to get out of it?
Me?
Yes, if you had your say and it was all up to you, what are you looking for in this election for president?
Well, I'm hoping that the martial law stays away, but for me, it's kind of, it's for my grandchildren. I'm fighting for them.
You're fighting for your grandchildren. What are you looking for?
I'm fighting for the defense of our country. You know, we have a president that bows down to everybody and is not protecting our country. This last deal in Libya proves that. We need to get somebody in there that's going to stand up for our country.
What are you looking for in a president this election?
I'm disappointed because I'm afraid it's between a turd sandwich and puke pie.
So you're not happy with either candidate?
No.
Of the major two parties, right?
I'm not happy with either candidate either. I'm hoping the country can get on a better track, preserve the Constitution, protect our freedoms, liberties, and our rights.
I'd like to get someone in office who will obey the Constitution.
You want a constitutional government?
Yes.
I think we're going to have to start making some decisions as a country on down, but there's going to be sacrifices to get out of where we are. You can't tax your way out of it.
You're looking for somebody that can actually make the right sacrifices.
Yeah, you're going to have to
say it how it is,
cut
get it
some
done.
expenses or whatever it is.
Eileen?
I'm looking for somebody to be fiscally responsible.
You're looking for somebody that can balance a checkbook.
I am.
I love your accounting background. So you care about that. And by the way, I care about that as well.
I'm looking for an admirable leadership.
You're looking for a leader.
A leader that would make the responsible and be the educator.
Does it have to be
all of us.
constitutional?
Yes.
So a constitutional leader. Some might think we want to stay away from the Constitution issue a little bit because there's nice little social programs we do that don't really fall underneath the Constitution.
Well, but we have to serve all the people.
Needs to be a balance.
We have to have a balance, and we have to be able to discern the guns and butter and how much we're spending on the cost we do to supply for those, to them that have not.
And Tim's looking for somebody to balance out the actual checkbook along with Eileen. Dr. Quinn?
Oh, I think I'd like to vote for legislators that'll step across the aisle and vote.
You're looking for somebody that's going to work with the other side and get the job done.
Get the job
So-
done for the people of this country.
Quit the fighting.
Yes.
You're after stop the internal bickering
Yes.
to the point where they're
Demonstrate some leadership.
They're becoming incompetent. They're not getting their job done at all.
I would love to see the Constitution come to fruition.
You want the Constitution back at its full,
Absolutely.
and if that means we got to cut out the social programs because they're not in there, then so be it.
So be it.
That would balance his budget or her budget, right, Tom?
I think that we need to really look at what we do ourselves as individuals and keep government local, keep it within our own reach and our knowledge.
So you're looking for
and
somebody to
expand our
downsize
knowledge.
the government? You're looking for somebody that's going to stand up to downsize it?
Absolutely.
Make the presidency weaker? What would you like to do, Stu? What are you looking for in a president?
In a president, I'd like somebody to be fair to everybody.
You want somebody that's going to be fair to everybody. Stop the divisiveness, the fighting
no
amongst
more
us.
politics. Make politics a word that's no longer a dirty word.
Clean up the profession.
I just want a president who will stand up for us, not against us. They're so afraid to do something and it's going to be wrong that they don't do enough.
And I think that some of that fear is afraid of doing the right thing with the right man in the office. And I think that the filibustering that's been going on, the 163 filibusters of any of President Obama's bills, is unprecedented. And we haven't seen that many in 3 different presidencies.
And you get the last word on what we're looking for in the president.
We're looking for someone who can manage the economy, and we're looking for someone who can look to the future. If you look to the past, over the last 100 years, we've gone through a big arc. We started out with the Gilded Age 100 years ago. We hit the bottom of that in 1977, and we've gone back up to where 22% of our resources are held by a very small group of people. We're doing an experiment right now. In Europe, they're saying we have to economize. We have to do everything we can to cut our bills. In America, we're saying we're counting on growth. We think that we can go through. If you look at the 1930s, we had the Depression pretty much ended in 1937. But they took their foot off the accelerator. They said, we can't do this anymore. We have to economize. And look what happened. We went back down the same slope. If we can stay where we are, if we can stay on the path, we will resolve this. We had a terrible spill in 2008. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort on a lot of people's part to get it done. And that's what I believe.
And that's all we have time for. You heard it directly from the community. Unfeathered advice. This is what we're thinking here in Northern Michigan. Stay tuned on libertytownhall.com as we follow through the election and our government moving forward. May God bless you, and may God bless America.
But what do we mean by the American Revolution? Do we mean the American War? Revolution was effected before the war commenced. The revolution was in the minds and hearts of the people, a change in their religious sentiments, of their duties and obligations. This radical change in the principles, opinions, and sentiments and affections of the people was the real American Revolution. A letter to H. Niles from John Adams, February 13th, 1818.